Hi, this is the Brewer Family Landscape, and we would like to introduce part of our yard. So, I have a question. What are those plants you are standing next to right now?
These 5 plants right here are called Jedi viburnum, so they get fragrant flowers in the spring.
Here's what a Jedi viburnum looks like up close. Let's move on. What part would you like to show us next?
Can we look at the plants up above the Jedi viburnum? And those are 5 mountain laurel. Is it possible to get those?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Up here?
Yes, that's one of them. They've already bloomed. They bloom in the later spring.
The blooms here are white, if you can see. And this is what it looks like up close, these leaves. And they grow a lot in North Carolina, so you will be able to see them quite often.
That's right. They grow in the wild all the time.
Now what's the next thing you'd like to show us?
Let's come down here, and we'll kind of shoot these plants, which are next to the Jedi viburnum. These are 3 forsythia plants.
Okay, so forsythias, they have yellow blooms, don't they?
They do, and they bloom in the early spring. And if you notice, they've been cut back. Can you show our viewers how some of those have really been cut back because they grow so fast?
Right here.
You got it, kiddo.
Now, what's next to see?
Well, the plants behind the forsythia are huge. Those are burning bush plants, and there are 3 of them.
And I have a question. Why are they called burning bushes?
They're called burning bushes because in the fall their leaves turn bright red as though they appear to be on fire. They're so bright red. Some people even call them flame bushes.
Wow, that's really neat. Are there any other plants that change colored leaves in the fall?
Actually, these do right here. These 3 shrubs are called black chokeberries, and their leaves will get red in the fall as well. They get black berries. If you can see these berries, they will eventually turn black. And birds eat them.
I can see that there's already one leaf that has changed its color.
Yeah, and they had white blooms in the spring.
Now, I have a question also. Do black chokeberries and burning bushes, are they deciduous or just change colors?
The chokeberries and the burning bushes are deciduous. They lose their leaves.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's next to see?
Well, behind the chokeberries are some rhododendron.
This is what a rhododendron looks like. Those are also very common in North Carolina, so you'd see them a whole lot.
They're beautiful bloomers in the I'd say mid-spring. Now if we come over here, we have 2 English laurel. One is a little bit smaller and the other one is a full-grown.
Do English laurels bloom?
Yes, they do in the spring, and they've already bloomed this year with a white bloom that looks a little bit like a bottle brush.
Right. And for our viewers, just to know, today is May 31st, so it is the end of spring.
Correct. That's a good point, Maddie. Now, if we come over here, this is some plants that our landscapers have been installing in the last couple days. And this, as well as the plant to the next to it, are deciduous azaleas.
Now, what's the difference between a dwarf and deciduous azalea?
Well, deciduous azaleas lose their leaves, and evergreen azaleas keep their leaves all year long.
Oh.
Now, when you get any type of dwarf plant, dwarf's just a word that is used in landscaping to mean smaller.
Just like a dwarf human is smaller.
That's right. Now, the reason that we planted these deciduous azaleas, we actually replaced evergreen azaleas with deciduous because the deer were eating the evergreen azaleas but not eating the deciduous. So we've put more deciduous plants in.
So do you think that deer like to eat evergreen azaleas, but the deciduous azaleas repel them?
That seems to be the case because my deciduous azaleas that we'll see a little later, the deer never have touched those.
And have those deciduous azaleas over there been here even back when the evergreen azaleas were here?
Yes. You got it. Now, want to move on to another plant?
Of course.
Right here at your feet is a plant. I'll ask my co-host, what kind of plant is that?
That is a hellebore, isn't it?
That's correct. Also called?
Lenten roses.
That's right. And they get blooms really in the winter months, which is what's nice about those. They were blooming in February this past year.
And if our viewers would like to know, did you know that pink hellebores actually lose their blooms first? Because our white ones are still there.
Wow, good point. Now, how do you think we're doing? You want to keep going?
Of course, you said the whole glen.
All right. Now, you had mentioned earlier the idea of a dwarf plant. Right here is a dwarf azalea.
So they're a lot smaller.
And it appears we have another co-host headed down,
Oh,
Annie Brewer.
she would like to help too.
Come on,
Now.
Annie.
So she'll help out and introduce us as well.
Yep.
So anyway, what are these plants up here?
Those are summer sweet clethra.
Oh, I thought I saw clethra in the front yard too, but it was so much smaller. What's the difference?
Now, the front yard, the clethras are called hummingbird clethras. And so they're a shorter, more dwarf variety. These are summer sweet and they get a little taller and wider.
Oh, now what are these plants that I am walking towards right now?
That's a carum azalea. They're a little smaller, but that is an evergreen azalea, and we will be transplanting that in the fall to hide it from the deer. We'll probably put Eskimo viburnum in its place.
Okay, now I noticed behind you there is a lot of trees. What are those 4 trees called?
Well, the two ends are Coosa dogwoods. And if you notice, Maddie, teach our viewers how they've been wrapped down by the trunks to be protected from deer.
This is deer protection down here. Deer like to scrape at the bark of a tree, and so these wraps, these heavy-duty wraps right here, they will keep the deer from scraping them. So if they do, it'll peel the wrap off but not hurt the tree.
That's right. And the next tree over is a Donald Wyman crabapple.
And looks like they have little apples.
Yeah, that's right. Little crab apples that have beautiful white bloom in the spring. Let me call Annie back here. Hey, Annalise, co-host, come here, honey.
And now, I also wondered, do you know what this tree is?
This is a type of crab apple, but we've never been 100% sure what kind, but it is beautiful when it flowers in the spring. It, too, has been wrapped to protect it from deer.
Well, to see if our viewers would like to research what this is, what color are the blooms?
They are pink.
Oh, okay. And this, you said, was a Coosa dogwood also.
Yes, this one had some deer damage, so it has also been wrapped. Deer rub their antlers on the bark, and boy, if they take a lot of that bark off, it can kill the tree. But this one seems to be recovering okay, so we're going to give it another year to see how it does.
That's good. Is there any other part of the glen to explore?
Well, we can go look at a few more things, and then we'll have made our first video. Here are 3 more deciduous azaleas that have been planted for over a year and a half. The deer have never hurt those.
These are the ones I pointed out earlier that looked a lot different from the evergreens.
Yep. And down here are 5 more evergreen azaleas that we will transplant to the back of the yard in the fall, where the deer are less likely to harm them.
And I also wondered, what is this dark colored plant that I am filming right now?
That's a holly bush.
Oh, interesting. Now, when do holly bushes produce berries?
In the fall, and if you'll notice, I think the deer have been nibbling on this one a little bit, you know?
So when the tops are off of some of the branches, but you did not clip them, deer probably chomped them?
That's a good point, yes. And then the last plant on our tour, if we come on down here, look at that rich green azalea. Show our viewers that. Isn't that beautiful color?
Yeah, it's very dark. It's even darker than the green of grass.
Yes. The last shrub on the tour are the 3 PJM. Look at the spider on that one. Interesting. Walking across the PJM rhododendron.
I'm not sure our viewers can see that, but
These are PJM rhododendron, which means they're one of the earliest bloomers in the spring with a violet-colored flower. They're gorgeous, but the deer were eating them a little bit, so I'm probably going to transplant them behind the house.
interesting. And I noticed one more thing while we were walking around. What is this tiny plant?
That's another dwarf forsythia.
Oh, so are some forsythias large, or are they all small like this one?
Some are large, like the ones we saw earlier on our tour, and then some are dwarf, like this one.
Good. So that's the whole glen, isn't it? Not including the vegetable garden.
That's it.
Or, I have noticed one more thing before we conclude this video. I would like to also point out these plants here. They blend in so well that you'd think they're weeds, but they're really bleeding hearts. They're named that because their blooms look like hearts with a drip of blood.
That's right. And I'll tell you what, why don't we conclude this segment of our gardening show. This was the segment on the Glen, and our next episode will tell you about the flowers in our front yard and the flowers on the other side of our house.
Okay, thank you for watching, viewers.